And welcome. Welcome to Woven Church, and we want to say, no matter what your socioeconomic background, no matter what your race or ethnicity, your gender identity, your sexual orientation, or anything else that would separate you from people, we want to say that you're welcome, wherever you are in that. And or if you're a person that doesn't want to have any kind of categories, you're welcome too. That would be a lot of millennials and Gen Z both. So welcome to you. We're going to do one of our sort of playlist openings today. And so Matt's going to lead us, and I'll say this again because for us to sort of always have in our mind, we believe that the Holy Spirit is not confined to Christians. The Holy Spirit's not confined to the Bible. The Holy Spirit isn't confined, period. She can go wherever she wants. And she can do whatever she wants, and what she wants to do is love. And she can love people everywhere. And all the arts are one of the things that the Holy Spirit seems to enjoy the most. And so we believe in the sacredness of the music that Matt's going to be talking about. And Matt, with that, I'll let you take it.
Kind of like I did last time, I stuck with songs that were kind of on the topic of what we've been talking about. So with going through the series of Faith After Doubt, I wanted to pick some songs that talked about doubt and kind of went through. I ended up kind of stringing some songs together. Two of them are from the same artist and one of them isn't. But I think it tells a full story of the beginning of doubt, the cynicism of doubt, and then coming back to faith after that process of doubt. So the first song is called I Quit Church by Matt and Toby. Want to go ahead and play? So yeah, I feel like that's probably pretty relatable to some people in this room. I want to give everybody kind of a chance to, if you want to, talk about how you kind of felt about that song and what emotions or stories it evoked for you. Anybody wants to?
I think I've definitely thought about breaking up with church before, and there have been times where I have for like a period of time, and then sort of come back in a very different way, in a different place.
I think it's helpful, or it's very healthy to recognize toxic environments, especially within a church when you get a higher power involved. I think it's definitely more important to keep your eye out for toxicity and being able to allow yourself to kind of quit church if you need to. Nobody's got anything else, we can go on to the next song, which is Pastor Stop By, also by Matt and Toby. So yeah, that was another one that I think kind of definitely has some valid criticisms of church. I really like the line, I can't teach you Jesus, I can only teach you Jesus in himself. That really kind of expresses that idea that we really need to connect with Jesus on our own to really understand Jesus. We can, get a lot of words, we can get a lot of different understandings and different interpretations of Jesus, but it's once you meet him personally that there's a little bit more to the story. Any other comments that people felt on that one?
I'm actually going to take the liberty since I have the mic already. I think for me that song more evokes a general feeling that I feel very familiar with in my own kind of transitions and reevaluations of faith where, I will certainly not name names, but there are people in church cultures I've been a part of that have told me, we miss seeing you here. We miss having you sing. We miss having you, up front saying something. I don't know, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, the song reminded me of man, I'm sure that sounds like well-wishing and encouragement and, something that's meant to be, I guess, welcoming in some way to the people saying that kind of stuff. But I know being in a transition phase with faith, when you hear that kind of thing, for me, that was always well, I need to feel secretly ashamed of myself now because of these things that people are expecting of me. And I think there's just a lot of cultural implications that the song really drove home for me of how difficult it is to feel internally out in a lot of ways and still be hearing verbally the "why aren't you here" kind of phrasing. So
Yeah, it's a lot of too, of that is what they get out of you. But they, this about you, but they used to use you for, and you're like, but I have all these other things going on. You only care about the things I can do for you. You don't care about the things that are going on inside. Yeah.
Exactly. I've talked to a lot of organizations and clubs and things over my years, and to me the red flag has always been oh, we missed you, and it's man, you didn't even notice me when I was there. Clearly, you don't even know me. We've talked once. How could you possibly miss me?
I think especially the line about that the mom contacted the pastor kind of makes you question where the motives are coming from and whether or not the pastor noticed.
And if that slipped out so easily, what?
And if that slipped out so easily, what else is there that they're not telling you? All behind the scenes talk.
I'm not sure I was able to understand all the lyrics. I'm more of I need to have the lyrics in front of me girly to be able to understand. But I do remember that one part of the song where he asked the pastor, "Do you remember what you preached 6 weeks ago?" And I think he said, "I don't," right? Yeah. And I think, to me, that really says a lot because I think when you're in church and even if you're talking to someone and you, if you're talking to a parent and you're like, "Hey, you did this thing and it really fucked me up." And they're like, "I don't remember that. I don't remember saying that. I don't remember that happening." And it's very obvious that for someone who's who feels internally on the out or who's just kind of in transition phase, and to talk to someone and try to get answers and they just don't, for them it's a normal Tuesday, but for the person who's asking the questions, it's it could be a deeply traumatic thing the other person didn't even notice because it was just a normal fucking Tuesday for them. And so I think a lot of the time in church culture, there's this idea of part of this could be, I'm a pastor's kid, so I get the, mom and dad being pastors on Sunday and then hearing everything they say about their congregants over dinner. So it's kind of this idea of say this outwardly, but when the church doors are closed or when it's just in the congregation and your sanctuary, you're just giving a sermon, there's this assumption that you can A, say whatever you want, and B, the people affected by you saying whatever you want won't be in attendance. And so it's just this, I feel a lot of people have this blind spot, and a lot of them don't even question it, I think. So, yeah.
The most like impactful thing about this song for me personally was the chorus and just the repetition of "but they don't" or "but they won't," and like the going back and forth between that, the musicality of it, like struck a nerve in me somewhere deep inside, and it just echoes the pain that I feel currently like in my personal life, where there are some people that just kind of don't get it and they won't get it. Like they just plainly refuse to even try. And I think in like the greater evangelical church culture, that is such a common practice, is that people in leadership, regular people just in congregation, they don't take the courageous step of trying to even just understand or learn a little bit more about the things that they don't understand or don't know. Yeah, so it just kind of struck a nerve with me in a like really good way that I, as an Enneagram 4, really vibe with. So, yeah, thank you.
I think something that I've noticed a lot, as I've been deconstructing in me, as I've been watching my parents and also like other people who are still evangelical, I think there's like this fear that is like built into evangelicalism, which is probably pretty obvious, but like I think a lot of people like they don't or they won't, like they don't because there's this like arrogance in the assumption that, oh, like my denomination has it right, everyone else is wrong. Or if you don't believe this, then you're not a true Christian. And it's this arrogance of like, I'm in the right and everyone else is in the wrong, so I can feel good about myself and I don't have to examine the deep insecurities that have been instilled in me by the church. But there's also this fear where if they look closer at things, it means that they're doubting, it means that they're quote-unquote straying from the faith, it means that they're putting their own security from not examining things into question, and there's this fear of like hell, and maybe not even hell, but like fear of being wrong, fear of all sorts of things that's just built into evangelicalism. So I think a lot of the times when people are like, they won't examine their beliefs, they don't examine their beliefs because they're just afraid to see what's behind the curtain, I think. Sorry, that's just what that made me think of.
I think there's definitely a huge veil of like willful ignorance on a lot of things within churches, like really specifically, it's like, okay, so I've done X, Y, and Z, and now everyone is saying X is not cool, that's mean. I'm like, oh, but I've done X, Y, and Z. You know what, I'm just gonna stick with, don't do X, Y, don't do W, right? W is, I don't know, I think it's fine.
Okay, so heading into the last song, it's called The Jesus Hypothesis by Derek Webb. Derek Webb is the first person I ever heard use the term evangelical, so I've been definitely keeping track of his artistry over the last couple of years, and this one is more about, okay, I've deconstructed, I've walked away, and I've been away for years, but now I'm kind of coming back to it and wondering about it a little bit more. So, yep. Yeah, any thoughts on that one?
It's not exactly quality content, but if you heard that song stuck in the middle with you, reminds me of that.
I can hear it.
Yeah, there's no one from the 2000s.
Yeah, I highly recommend checking out that full album by Derek Webb. There's a lot of really good stuff on there. But I think I kind of really relate to that song in trying to find the Jesus in all of this. Trying to figure out, still really feeling like there needs to be some sort of explanation tied for just kind of like everything that happens. And I'm trying to, figure out how Jesus plays into all of that. I think that's all the songs I have.
Thank you, Matt. And everything you did today was about what we're talking about. So,
And I selfishly love Derek Webb, but I'm here now talking, so talking during that time is going to feel appropriate.
and I just read some of those lyrics in case it was hard for me to at least understand some of the lyrics. Maybe the Jesus hypothesis is worth one more test to find a rhythm for all there is that beats in my chest. Oh, the Jesus hypothesis, like Thomas' best guess. Oh, like Pascal wagering with all of the doubts in my head. You're in my head. Are you just in my head? Because you are in my head. And does this have a little reverb on it? That would be great. The album is the Jesus hypothesis. The song, the Jesus hypothesis, is from. It was just this year, and so thanks for that. Remind me at the end if we go back there for just a minute. So today we're talking. This is really the critical Sunday in the talks. This whole talks about this book, Faith After Doubt. And it's not really about the book. It's the book gives us insight, I think, into where we are as a church and where Christianity is as a religion especially in the States today. And so just to recap really quickly, stage 1 and stage 2 are both very evangelical. Like that's what we would in fact basically call evangelical churches are almost by definition stage 1 or stage 2 churches. Stage 1 being really simplistic in their answers by being binary. So everything has a binary answer. It's either yes or no, right or wrong. And there's very little nuance in that. If there is nuance, it's only a matter of, well, tell me the specifics so that I can tell whether it's right or wrong. And so in a lot of ways, law, the study of law is in between these stage 1 and stage 2, because the theory is with the stage 1 in law, you would have an answer, person is guilty or innocent there, and so there are actual really specific laws that determine whether somebody is guilty or innocent. And so you go through this whole process. And so that's a really nuanced stage 1. So there's lots of detail, lots of this or that, but it still comes down to that basically stage 1 or stage 2 complexity where there's a lot more openness to possibilities. But in stage 2, there's still the right answers. So there are just more right answers than there were in stage 1. So, well, yeah, you could go down that road. And you're right, that's totally good. But there's like a line which you can't go over. You can have all of these different answers as long as they don't transgress this line. So at Asbury, they have this, they're very stage 2 institution. And so you can have lots of different lines of thought. They're very nuanced and complex in a lot of their thinking. As long as you don't affirm gay people, that's the line. So
Pedophiles are okay, right?
No, to their minds, those are the same thing. Pedophiles, and they would equate pedophiles with a lot of people in the LGBTQ community. So no, they would say that's bad.
Okay, because it's gay.
Because it's so close to being gay. Yeah, and that's of course a straw man that it's just a horrible thing. And there's lots of logical inconsistencies in stage 1 and stage 2. Stage 3 that we're talking about today is a notion of what Clarence calls proplexity. So if it's simplicity and then complexity, then this is proplexity, or questioning. And this almost always comes about so there are hard landings and soft landings to get to stage 3. And I'll just give you the spoiler alert. We are basically a stage 3 church. That's basically what we are. We are a church of people who have, and most of us have been through those first 2 stages and found it wanting. So if you've seen the movie The Knight's Tale, it's a great movie. It really is a great movie.
I just saw my little brother, and he's a Heath Ledger super fan, so I have seen every Heath Ledger movie more times than I probably need to in my life.
And so the point is that, we've tried it and we've found it lacking, wanting. And most of us that have come out of those traditions, which isn't everybody here, but those of us who have come out of those traditions, have hard landings or soft landings. So in your case, your move from stage 2 to stage 3
Was hard.
was a hard landing. Do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, I think that for me, I was okay with complexity in the sense of as long as we just didn't talk about it. So I was really pro mental health things in the sense of you need to like yourself and stuff. Even though evangelicals were totally into that, I was like, you're on some bullshit on this particular point, but if I don't talk about it, you don't care because it's complex, right? But that only goes so far because as a queer person, you can't handle complexity in that world very well. It's much more perplexing. You're totally thrown because you are told you have to either be. It really annoys me that pastors who are having sex tell a queer person they have to be celibate. Just gonna put that out there now, very politely, because that's not normally what I say. But I was told that so many times, and I'm like, okay, so you get to go home and you get to relieve tension, but I do not. What?
And it's not just sex, it's intimacy.
Yeah, it's any form of intimacy. There's no releasing anything. And so for me, it turned into a crash, which, as I said last week, turned into an affair situation, which basically split my world in two. And probably to no one's surprise, I was thrown out of the church. Not wanted, was literally told the phrase, my therapist was told the phrase, make sure Logan never thinks gay things again. Make sure he never acts on his gay behavior, make sure that's not what he does. So that's a real great way to start therapy.
And so, just to be clear, so you can have subtlety and then there's the drop off.
Yeah.
Where all of it loses its complexity and it becomes simple again.
Right. Well, and I think that is the point when you talk about hard landings is they try to make it simple to make you know the terms. If you do this and this and this and this and this, we'll let you back in. After 2 years, of course, because we need you to feel bad about yourself and feel like a monster, the most horrible person in the entire world for 2 years, and then you can come back.
And this is literal. This
is literal. Like I signed a contract.
Written down.
Written down. I had to sign it and date it. And I was so kicked out.
Crappy couple of years.
It was a very crappy couple of years. Actually, it was the worst years of my life. I developed panic attacks. I developed things that just basically made me spiral. I'm jovial about it now, but at the time it was hell on earth. Yeah. And I didn't want to talk to anyone because your thing is you're a monster. This hard landing was you're a monster, you're bad, you're no good to anyone. It's weird I'm talking about this on my birthday. And then, sorry, no, you're fine. And I tried to push everyone away because it was like, I'm a danger to anyone I interact with. I am not a safe person. I'm not a good person. I don't deserve anyone. I have some very good friends and family members who would not let me behave that way. One of my favorite animes has this line of like, the main character is going through this dark season, and one of my favorite sections is, there's this internal dialogue going between things, and like, what this person needs right now is people who will keep pace with him and match him no matter what. And that's what I had, so that's the benefit. And that's perplexing for them, right? Because they had to pick what the institutions they were all involved in would call me and say, I'm not taking that either.
At Beaumont, we have several parents who were in that spot where their tribe said, you've got to pick. And they picked their kid. And as such, they ended up here instead of where their tribe was.
Yeah, getting kicked out of a tribe was probably, it's a real pearl in this moment. It's like, if there's one biblical metaphor I like, is like when it talks about pearls and opportunities, because I think sometimes you get a real gift and you don't know it. And getting kicked out, and that hard landing really was a gift, even though it's like really hard to talk about. And it's painful and it's complicated, especially because I'm not guilt-free in it. I'm shame-free in it, but I'm not guilt-free in it. And that's the tricky part of it. So, but I'm sitting here today able to talk about this a decade later, and it feels more liberating. It's because of the gift of the hard landing. And I don't know how to explain that. That's complicated.
And so I, as most of you know, had a soft landing. All I had was, I just lost my job. But I didn't lose.
Just lost my job.
You were at for 15 years?
Yeah, it's just a job. I didn't lose my family.
Right.
I didn't lose my friends. I'm still friends with a lot of those people that work at Asbury. I still have a lot of friends there. I didn't lose, I lost my church, but I don't think that was their fault. I think that, though they would have kicked, no, actually, I guess they did kick me out. But they did kick me out in a hard way. They kicked me out in, if you were going to kick out somebody, they did it in the best way possible. I don't know that I ever told you how that happened, but I met with my pastor, who I don't even know if any of you would know. I met with my pastor, and he said, you're supposed to be leading people, and you're supposed to be helping people know Christ. And if you stay in my church, we won't, because of the way you believe, we won't be able to give you any leadership responsibilities. You won't be able to be up front or lead people in any way. And so I would love to always be your pastor, he said. And I will even be happy to be your pastor, even if you're not going here. But I just want you to know, you won't be able to do that here, because our church has said this is who we are. And I thought that was pretty good. That was really honest. So as far as soft landing go, that's pretty good. Pretty good way to lose your church.
You were not told you had to become straight.
Which is a very different thing, right? Because, in fact, he wasn't telling me even to change.
No, he didn't.
He was just telling me, you're not going to be able to do that here. And I thought that was really honest. In fact, I thought there was a moment of wish in his eyes that he could go with me. Not much, but a moment of it does sound good if I didn't have to adhere to everything I do.
Yeah. And I think that's the hard part, right? It's like when you're in something for so long, and especially when it's your income. Elizabeth Gilbert, she actually advised, and I've loved this, it's really changed my whole perspective on creativity. She said, don't make your art your income until you have to. She wrote 4 books before it ever became her income.
That's good.
Just because it can limit you.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
then the creativity becomes about the paycheck.
Yeah.
not about the art itself.
Well, how many bands have we heard of in the old days? They signed a contract.
Right.
And well, that was the Mother Richard. Who's that? Did Kiss Me? Sixpence Mother Richard. That was sort of their thing. They signed a contract and then they couldn't do anymore because they were going a different direction than the company went.
Yeah, and the people who go against that, it's horrible.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, it's actually horrible.
Yeah, well then you lose your job in a harder way than I did.
Yeah.
I wanted to leave list some of the characteristics for stage 3, just so that you get a sense of where this is. Stage 3 are people who who are willing to ask anything. So in stage 2, you can ask questions up to a limit, and then it's a sharp drop off. No, you can't ask any more questions. In stage 3, you allow yourself to ask any questions. The problem with stage 2 with questions is that you can't be totally honest because you can't ever go to the places that your mind might take you and that the Holy Spirit might take you. You can't go to those places because some of those are forbidden places. So here is stage 3. They're critical, realistic, honest, authentic experiences, seeing through appearances to reality. They're honest, authentic, true to myself, being fair, acknowledging bias and mistakes. That's a huge one. We did a whole series on biases.
Yeah.
Because whether you're willing to acknowledge your bias has everything to do with honesty.
Yeah. I just find it so liberating to be in the spot because you can just acknowledge, yeah, I'm biased here.
Yes, and we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all are biased. And if you can acknowledge that, then you've got a lot better shot at a truly honest person. Everyone has an opinion. Every viewpoint is a view from a point. Manipulators who control, these are authority figures are manipulators who control the naive and the trusting. Well, okay. Honest, and so I guess that's one of the big themes of that is the idea of being honest with the questions. The problem with this is there are very little answers. So here are some other characteristics. Stage 3 people don't like to be committed to anything religious. Stage 3, go ahead.
I really feel that one. Because post all that crash, as you can imagine, when I finally saw myself out of it, I did not just run to this. I actually rejected it for probably about 2 years, where I just was not, I was just not interested at all, because I finally found liberation from this obligation thing, this thing I owed. And I'll say this also, I even split the difference with the obligation. Like, it's okay to be obligated to yourself and want to do something well. Like, that's okay. Like, there's a part of that that's good. But when you're obligated to a system that has no interest in your betterment whatsoever, it can cause you great harm and damage.
Yeah, so we as our church, even the always welcome, never obligated, that's on the front and center of our webpage. Because we're basically a stage 3 church. We're saying it's okay to be that here. Now the downside is people don't come to church.
Right.
So we really have, actually we have more than this now, but we had 30 people that are real part of our church. And some of them come a couple times a year now.
I have a ton of them.
And that's okay. We say that's okay.
You're still in.
Yeah, you're still in?
You're still in. That's exactly right. Yeah. And so the trick is, how do we make the church work? I'm open for ideas. This could be from anybody.
Yeah.
If we really are basically a stage 3 church, where we're full of questions, and we have some, you know, I think that we have some answers,
Right.
but we also have plenty of questions, and since we're not belief-oriented, you can believe something or not believe something, and that's okay.
And I think that part is health. Like, I think the belief part is health because you don't come in here and you don't have to have a certain thing that you believe. There's a lot of open-endedness where you can be in process, and you are so welcome here in that process.
I had a question. So how are you going to get your political agenda done if you don't shame people into coming to church? I don't get it.
Yeah, it's not going to work out very well, is it?
So, you know, I don't know if I'm allowed to go this way.
I don't know.
But you know,
We might have to edit this part out.
I'll say this, because there's a particular party that is made up of stage 1 people, they get stuff done.
Right.
They have a hierarchy that works because the top, it goes straight down, and if the top person is a horrible person, it doesn't matter.
Right.
Because that's the leader, and so it goes down the system, and they get stuff done. So even if you have a majority that aren't in that party, you know, we're all like, yeah, okay, you believe what you want, I believe this, and we don't get stuff done.
Right. Well, you know, and especially
That's the answer.
Yeah.
So you're right, we don't get it. We don't get our political.
No, we don't, because with the concept of this being everyone being invited to the table, and honestly, the theme being woven together is so important because we don't look, think, act the same at all.
Right.
And so when you think about when you have that level of nuance of people and of thought, it makes something really beautiful, but it's also sometimes really hard to make movement because we're all just different and we're all in different places. But there's a lot of beauty in it too. It's just sometimes hard.
A lot of millennials and Gen Z who have come out of evangelicalism, I mean, most of them are in some form of stage 3, where they have, I don't know if most, but a lot.
Yeah.
Where they have asked questions and have gone through their beliefs and deconstructed in such a way that they're usually at a bottom place of, yeah, I don't know.
Or I don't care.
Or more than that, I don't
Yeah.
care.
And I think I don't care is healthy. There are just some things we're not supposed to know the answer to. And I think that's real peace.
Yeah.
I really do. I
Well-
think not knowing answers is peaceful.
So maybe there is a comfort in a good way in being willing to sit in and I don't know.
Yeah.
I could tell you right now 4 questions that I don't know, and they're big ones. Like all of Christianity really rests on some of these questions that I don't know the answer to, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I've got no way out right now, and that's okay. I'm sitting in that. I hope that I do get some answers to some of them, and that I'm way forward. But I don't know.
Yeah, one of the things I'm looking for is I'm just looking for internal peace in things while picking something.
Oh, that's great. Well, and if your eternal destiny doesn't depend on the answer,
Right.
then that's helpful.
Exactly. Because that's the most unhealthy thing, right? You
Yeah.
keep imagining this eternal thing that's so beyond overwhelming and beyond what our brains can comprehend anyways. Like, we just don't have
That's
the
right.
ability to comprehend it. And then it's like all supposed to be this shit that I was taught. It just doesn't compute. And honestly, all it did was cause anxiety. And there's so much liberation in life of, I don't know. Because the truth is, I don't care. And I don't have to care. And it was so painful because I wasn't allowed to say I don't care.
Yeah.
So I had to let it bother me, and it would just torment me. And then it just got peaceful because it's like, this doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make me any less spiritual than anyone else. It doesn't. Because questions are what makes us spiritual. Questions are what have made things sacred for
Not
years.
the answers to those questions,
No,
but
never.
having questions.
Right. Which is why we believe any kind of art form.
Mhm.
They're sacred in any kind of art
That's
form. Because it's not about any kind of authorial intent in any fashion. It's not about the people who wrote, if you're talking about the Bible, it's just not about what the people who wrote the letters of opinion is. I don't really give a shit what Paul's theological views were, because it doesn't matter. Last time I checked, per the Christian thing, although they act like it, he wasn't God. Last time I checked.
Even for them.
Yeah. Last time I checked. Yeah.
By the way, Jon and I have gotten some help in Paul recently, because I'm not a Paul fan in general. And
Oh, I feel very kindred.
Oh.
I can't stand it.
no, I've been, a pastor for 3 years now, 3.5 years, and I don't know if I've ever preached on Paul.
I don't know, I could.
I think, well, Derek Webb also has a song on that album called Sympathy for Paul, where he kind of talks about Paul. They're trying to follow what you said, but like that wasn't ever really the intention. Like you were just kind of like trying to help the churches you were associated with at that time. And even then, we go into also misquoting Jesus of the millions upon millions of
Yes.
misinterpretations and things stuffed in there from society claiming it was Paul who said it, and it probably wasn't.
Well, the letter's just a letter.
But something I wanted to, hold on, I'm waiting for the thought to come back to me. Because it was something you mentioned earlier about how do we do church when we often are like asking questions. I think it's the good thing about being here is that people can have answers to certain things or thoughts on certain things, but I don't think Jon speaks for me. I don't think John's answers or opinions are the same as mine.
I love that.
That's right.
And there's a lot of churches where you feel like, okay, whatever the pastor's saying, that's what everybody else believes because they're out there amening and all this stuff. And you're like, okay, they agree with him so much, they must agree with him on almost everything. But there's not a lot of room for people to have individual thought. I feel like I can have individual thought. And I've been told before that my associations with this church meant I believed certain things. And I was like, no, that's not how that works.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, my association with the church is that, yeah, I agree on a lot of the main points, but people have different beliefs. We're allowed to exist in the same space and
Which is one
talk
of
about
my
these
points,
things. Yeah.
is that we have different beliefs,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
This stage really gives so much room for a level of curiosity that isn't matched. And, even those of us who are more involved than others, we just don't think we know what's best. That's just not our way. We just try stuff and see how it goes. Like, I just feel like I'm constantly learning. And isn't that so liberating? Because that gets you out of that place where you had to think a certain way and your behaviors just didn't align with that thinking. It puts a level of exhaustion on you and drainage, and then you would act, quote unquote, what they would deem sinful. I don't even like that word, it just makes me shrill. But they would say those things, and I think back right now, and it's like, but I had so much weight on my shoulders to try to meet standards. And there was no curiosity in it at all. There was no room to be curious. I missed out for a huge portion of my 20s on this wonderful world of art and beauty and exploration because of my limited thinking. And that's sad. It's fun to reclaim it in my 30s, but I missed out for years because of that.
Or your 60s.
Yeah.
Not your 60s. By the way, McLaren says, it's really hard to have a stage 3 church. Like, doesn't really happen much. And so, just for you to know, we're trying to buck the system. We're trying to make something happen because we think it really can.
I just want to share a quote that Dolores posted in the Zoom chat. She's quoting Stephen Crane. He says, "Think as I think, said a man, or you are abominably wicked, you are a toad." And after I thought of it, I said, I will then be a toad. And I think that kind of relates to what you're saying. I don't want to speak for everyone, but I know for me, it's difficult to conceive of a place where I can come in, I can participate, I can be a part of it, actually be fully in, and not have to worry about the things that I believe or think, and whether or not I will actually be welcomed for the questions and perspectives that I have. And, you know, to Wolf's credit, you've proven me wrong in that fear many times. But I think it is difficult when you're in perplexity to really believe that all the time, regardless.
Yeah, for sure.
The best way about that is we're constantly growing and we're constantly changing. We just don't want to ever stop. And I think you're right on your views of, I don't spend much time in afterlife because it doesn't matter, but I love your view of why it seems like God's really interested in us growing and us changing, so why would he stop that? I love that concept because it's like, yeah, that's what my whole life has been. I've constantly been growing and changing, so why would I stop doing that? That just doesn't seem accurate to just, that feels so arrogant to feel like I'm just going to understand.
It is. It is.
Well, in the political process, you don't grow yourself, you grow the machine. This
is not cynicism coming from you.
Sorry, I'm wearing all black today. I don't know.
Well, everyone, thank you for being a part of this. I would just, I know we don't have time, but I'd love to hear if there is anybody that has a help for us as we're trying to make this stage 3 church. How do we do it better? So, for example, one of the things we do is, in general, our upfronts aren't things where we ask you to recite a creed with us, or ask you to sing a song with us, because that may not be where you are. We don't want you to say something that isn't honest for you. So even if we have words, it's really like, sing them if you want, but totally fine if you don't. Because we want to be able to say things up here without saying that's what you believe. We want to say things, and if they work for you, if it makes sense to you, then let's go down that way. But if it doesn't, you don't have to go that way. So that's an example.
Yeah.
And the always welcome never obligated is another example of ways that we're trying to do church in a way that makes sense for you. Anybody else have a way that we could do that better? Or that we are doing it for that better?
You know, one of the things that we've done a couple of times is go do the meals at the Hope Center. And, you know, the more things that we can do that are reaching out to other people, the less focused we are on ourselves and whether our beliefs are right on this particular topic. I think that's always helpful.
That's great. I would love us to become more active. That's been a hard sell for us.
It's been a really hard sell.
And I think maybe because it's been so associated in the church with like the duties. Do these things if you're a part of if it's what you do if you're a part of the church. And so part of our task is to be able to truly love. I hope this, I won't even say a name, I'll just say we have somebody here who is constantly looking out for other people and constantly is the person who's always talking to the new person, is there for every time we serve. And I won't out that person because I don't think they would want it, but I think that's beautiful. If you could be in stage 3 and still love people well, you know, I don't want that to sound guilty. And still feel good about, like, you are still in a place where you could help other people in significant ways. The way that the church is doing it, I don't know any of those things. I think that would be good if we could get to those places. I don't know how to do that well.
I guess I have something to say about the nature of Woven, and I don't mean to offend anybody or anything, but I've always seen Woven as a celebration of health and well-being, spiritually, mentally, all that. So I think a lot of the times churches are supposed to, they promise you, oh, we'll heal you, we'll take your trauma and heal it. But, and I think a lot of people, because of all of these stage 1, stage 2 organizations that are ruling the world, is like effectively, there's so much damage being done on the individual level that most people are not really healthy enough to celebrate their being. So, you know, it's because they've been told, well, it doesn't matter if you're healthy or not. You need to do this. You know, that is your life. If you do that, then you're good. You should be proud of yourself. So like a lot of people buy into that. I never did, and I was like, screw you guys. So I found myself here, you know, I'm like, wow, okay. But I don't know, does it make any sense?
We really do want to celebrate people just as they are.
Right, just as they are.
That's right.
And I think sometimes people see Woven and they either don't have like, I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouths, but I guess I'm just sort of thinking like, well, I remember like when I first started coming here, I was like, I don't know if I'm like mentally healthy enough for this place. You know, I don't want to drag anyone down because we're having a good time, you know. So I guess like, I don't know. I think you probably agree.
Well, I think that's hopeful that we want to celebrate being stage 3 people. I think that's all right. And I do want to celebrate us in that. It's good. I also want to just sort of wrap up the Jesus hypothesis. We're going to take communion, and that is part of the Jesus hypothesis. Maybe there's still something, and if you don't want to buy into that, that's fine. But we as a church are about, we think that there is health truly in Jesus. And just to tell you that real quick, the Paul thing is, if Paul was really about inclusion instead of what it sounds like with exclusion, if Paul's main idea was, how can I include Gentiles with the Jews, like that we're all of equal value, then that really has helped me. Because then that is like what Jesus was. So I haven't let him out of jail yet, but I am
Softened.
Yeah, I've softened. And because Jesus I really believe in. And you don't even have to believe in Jesus to do this communion part. This is a part we do together to say, we're in this together. We're in this together. We can do hard things. And so, even now, let's go back. We'll get crackers and juice, and that'll be the message that we have for each other today. So you can take it even as you get it today. Just take the cracker and juice as we say, we're in this together. I love taking communion with you all. It is so meaningful to me to do that together. Not as an adherence to a certain set of beliefs, but as a symbol of doing this together, of being okay in our questions, being okay in our in our beliefs in wherever we are, or in our non-beliefs where we are. That's all right. Thanks so much. I love all of you. I love being with you. And I love that table back there. There's a table back there where you can draw while church is going on. It's great. What a good table. Thank you all at the table for being a part of this with us. We'll be together at the table with Christ. There you go. That's the table we were talking about. A few announcements. We have any of you that want to be in the book club. We have a few more weeks, and that's tomorrow night at Panera at 6:30. Then, here's something, Charlie, along the lines of what you were talking about. We're having a family festival this year, and it is on September, is it the 30th? September 30th, with a rain date of October, it must be the 7th, with a rain date of October 7th. It'll be here on the grounds, and it's going to be different than we've done in the past. And this is in combination with Beaumont. What I need two woven people to be on a team with some Beaumont people to plan it. I'll just give you the sort of the overview of it is, I'd like to have live music going on. We have this big field out here, so we want to put up some kind of stage. We'll probably use our sound equipment and have music going on, and booths, so artist booths. So if Dolores, I don't know if she's available, but if she's available, we'd love to have her do a booth on that September 30th. And so people can sell their things at the booths, and it won't cost anything to have a booth. We just want to have artists here. And so Beaumont has probably 3. Kristen, I thought you might want to do a booth. And then there'll be children's games going on. I would love for a lot of you to be involved in music or in art, or in just helping the whole thing work. So does that make sense? Any questions sort of about that? So if that's something that you'd be willing to, so I need to find 2 people that will help make that happen with the Beaumont people. They're great at this stuff. Renee, was that a hand? No, it wasn't. Okay. I thought you were raising your hand. I was, we just volunteered Renee. Please let me know if you might be one of those 2 people. What else, Logan? Yeah. Okay, so we are in talks right now with Beaumont about becoming a part of Beaumont. So we would still be completely woven church. We would still be at the same time. It doesn't change anything we do here. All it changes is the governance, where we would become a part of the governance that is Beaumont. Logan is great at all the governance stuff. I'm terrible, and by and large, our church is that's not our thing. And if we could be, the thought is if we can let them be our champion in that, and help us in resources of doing all of that stuff well, that would be a good thing. For those of you who haven't been to Beaumont, theologically it's identical to what we are here at Woven. They're all questions people. Most of them have come out of a liberal background where they haven't had to have a crash. But they're fantastic people, loving people. But anyway, I just want you to know that's the conversation that's going on. And before we get too much farther, I would love to make sure that you know what's going on so that you can give us input. If you have questions, if you have thoughts about it, you can talk to Matt or Carly or Logan about that if you have questions or thoughts. There are a team from Webb that is meeting with the Toby team from Beaumont to talk through what it might look like. I'll just say from my point of view, I mean, as pastor of both churches, it could be such a huge win for, I think, both churches. And there's no reason it needs to go any way except well. But if you do have any thoughts on that, please let us know so that we can address it, so that we do this, so we really do this well. We don't go any places that doesn't make sense for us. How's that? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that okay, Matt? Okay. Any other, wanted to thank Renee for last night. Thank you. We had such a good time at Renee's and her family's place. So thank you for all of you that helped make all that happen. All right. If there's nothing else, we love you all, and we'll see you next week.